What's up, guys? We got ourselves a Japanese Camry. Since everybody else in the US is importing them, we figured we would too. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you all of the upgrades that you need to do on these crusty 25, 30-year-old cars and make them street worthy again and ride nice.
ある朝のこと。
So to start off our first episode here, we're going to install some fresh subframe bushings, front and rear subframe bushings. We have our diff mount bushings as well. This is the one that's going to fit in the factory on our non-turbo models. We don't have the second bushing in there, but we are going to install it, which SERIALNINE also provides this beautiful weld-in collar that you install right there. So you can install your secondary bushing. Alright, so we already got most of this stuff soaked in PB Blaster. A lot of surface rust on this car because it is a 96. You can see that some of the bushings are pretty tired already. A lot of wobble in those diff bushings and subframe bushings. So we're going to start the disassembly, get this exhaust out of the way so we can drop the subframe down and get it on the table. So now we got the exhaust out of the way. We're going to unbolt our parking brake cables from the front here and get some slack out of that so that way this can drop with the subframe. We're going to unbolt the 2 bolts on the rear caliper as well as the bolt on the shock so that way everything on the subframe can be dropped out independently from the rest of the car. We remove the 2 10mm bolts that are holding this on right here, and that lets you swing the carrier right here that holds the crossover on the cable. So there's a 14mm nut. If you just take that one nut off, you can free the cables enough to where we can drop the subframe. Now we're going to remove our drive shaft bolts, which are incredibly tight, so that's fun.
Keep going, keep cruising. Oh, keep cruising with that on that side?
Yeah, until the nut starts free spinning.
Chris teaching cheat codes over here.
Yeah, he can push.
Strong Canadian friend.
Yeah, get your strong Canadian friend to push up, and then you might be able to knock that bolt out.
Not be able to.
See if we have our Canadian friend hop in the car and put it in neutral.
He works out.
No, I don't. I just weigh 120 pounds.
Oh, we finally got a number out of him.
It checks out. Little red button to the right of the strip. There he is.
There we are.
All right, back in park. Gracias.
See you again.
Yep. So she can just hang out right there. So now that you have your shock disconnected, calipers tied up out of the way, parking brake assembly out of the way, exhaust is out of the way, and our drive shaft is off. So we are going to roll our handy dandy table underneath here, support this with a jack on our table, and then drop the whole subframe assembly out. Yep, so our big 19s now are off, ones we broke loose before, so that makes our life a little easier. Now Donnie's going to slowly let down our jack. Shocks are a little bit stuck in the uprights, so we're probably going to have to wiggle those out as we go. And then as we're dropping it, we have to come back a little bit with it just so we can clear the exhaust. Oh, let's get the shocks out first, Donnie.
We just need to get
This one's out. This one's out. All right, now let it down.
I'll hold it here. You want to go up with it?
So some of the insides of these Allen bolts started rounding out on us, which is not ideal because once they're rounded out, it's really difficult to get out. You have to weld something onto them. So what we're going to do is just pop the axle stubs out and slip the differential out that way, just so we don't, lose our minds. Two little bracketries that come around the corner here that are kind of impeding us moving our diff and axles out any further. So we're pulling these two little brackets out of our way so we can get the diff out of the way Then we can bring this whole thing over to Cricket's corner and have him weld in our, what are you gonna call that? A diff mount cup?
Yes, I guess so, yeah. The diff mount cup. They didn't come with it with the non-turbo cars. Turbo cars actually come with it already from the factory. Non-turbo doesn't, but since we already are doing the bushings, why not throw in an extra one?
Yeah, and you can also do these diff bushings inside the car, but since we're doing the subframe bushings, we just figured we'd do everything while we had it out
And we want to
and
paint
make our
it.
life a little easier.
Painting it and welding overhead's not always fun, you know. I like these shirts without holes in them. Grab the diff and twist
Now
it.
you want to grab that diff and twist it, the old diff twist.
Twist
So one of these
that.
is going to be shorter than the other. It's going to be this guy, and then the other guy can go out yonder. And look at that.
It does.
Good vibration. Yeah, look how clean that is under there. This is a 96, folks. That is
Yeah.
beautiful. Those just get replaced with those full slide-on brackets that we got from SERIALNINE. So while Cricket is prepping this to weld, I'm gonna try and smack these bad boys out of there. Apparently, they come out easier than S chassis ones, but we'll see if that's true.
The whole point is you don't burn them out.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to burn them out. Look at these hot johns. Put them on the table, and they are set to go only a certain way.
Incredibly optimistic Chris.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So
Would you look at that?
The guy at SERIALNINE told us that we could use an air hammer, but he wanted everybody to be able to do it. So we're doing it with a hammer and a pry bar.
Look at that.
So not even an air chisel needed. You love to see it.
You never get that lucky.
Uh-uh.
You know? Thanks, Toyota. You're really doing it for me.
I like that it's already split into two pieces. So usually with the S chassis ones, you have to cut with a sawzall.
A relief?
Just a relief cut in it. This already comes with a relief cut and it just has rubber smushed in between it. So it allows you to remove it.
Look at that. It's just working its way on out.
Another pry gun. Oh,
Look at that.
love it.
Pre-split. So everything Nissan has required us to cut sleeves and press and stuff. Do all kinds of stuff that we don't really enjoy doing. This we get to knock out like that.
So you can actually make this, and you can even do flux core if you want to. I just am wearing shorts and I don't want to get burned. And TIG looks a lot better, you know? So I like to TIG everything unless it's up in a hard spot. That makes it difficult to actually TIG. So I'm just gonna TIG this one in, but you can MIG it in if you want to. The factory one is only done, yeah, it does look like it's, yeah, it's stick welded on there. So I'm just gonna TIG it just because it's right here, nice and easy. I don't have to roll over another container. This one has wheels on it. So just gonna do it real quick, and then Chris will be able to put all the bushings in after we paint it. So I'm gonna weld it, I'm gonna paint it, and then put the rest of the goodies on here. So shout out to SERIALNINE for making this thing so nice and sweet. It fits right in. It's actually got a recess. If you go on the back side, Joel, and look, you can see it has a recess on it. So your proper alignment is there, so it won't move around. Once we cleaned it up, it actually clicked into place. So what you want to do is just take a pair of vice grips and just lock it into place, set your two tacks, remove your vice grips, and then you can finish weld the whole thing.
Alright, so while we got the subframe drying, we threw some fresh paint on it because it had a lot of surface rust and, you know, obviously to cover up where Cricket had welded. So now we're moving on to knocking these diff bushings out. So they have a metal sleeve collar around the edge here. We're going to see if we get lucky like we did with the rest of the bushings. We're able to just, you know, smack these things out of here.
Definitely going.
Oh, it's going. You know, just appreciate Toyota for this. Once again, big shout out. Boom. I'm gonna throw some paint on this crusty girl too, just because I don't like rusty parts. All right, so you can see we got our subframe all cleaned up and painted. It's a good idea to take it all apart and do it. So I just decided to remove all the control arms so I can get into all the little corners that needed paint, because some of the rust in here was a little bit aggressive. Now we're going to get on to installing our diff bushings and putting the diff back into our subframe. These are the semi-solid diff bushings. They're Delrin insert as opposed to being full solid. Because we did the solid subframe bushings, these are going to help, you know, reduce a little bit of the noise and vibration that you get from it. But while it's still upgrading from the rubber mounts, stock rubber mounts have a lot of slop in them, so this gives you 100% power transition. So that means every time you clutch, kick, shift, everything, it's going to be direct drive instead of actually having all of that slop inside your differential. So these go just like, they're white, so you try not to get them dirty.
Too many rubber mallet for that.
Yep. Nice and easy. This one seems to just go right where we want it. Then the lower ones will press in whenever we push our bolts into place, because the bolt will just drag that into place. So now we can get our subframe aligned, because you see one of our carrier bushings has 2 bolts. So the pitch of this has to be exactly right. So what we're going to do is line it up with the subframe, get the bolt started, and then knock this into place. Now, if you are going from a non-turbo model to the double bushing upgrade, you are going to have to get another one of these bolts. This is an M14 by 2.0. It's kind of a weird random bolt. Thankfully, Marco had an extra one laying around, gave it to us. So let's get this thing in there. So now we got our 2 front diff bushings in place. That'll kind of help keep us in line where we need to be. And then what I did is I propped a pry bar underneath the front just so our circle here is centered, because the back of our bushing here has a recess that needs to go around. So now this bushing is the one that doesn't need anything crazy. Hold that in place there. This one is a little bit trickier, so you got to line up your holes there before you get it started. So, hope it stays in the right spot. Yeah,
Then you got your fancy plates.
nice plates, factory bolts. You just hope that they line up right. Lift up on that with the pry bar just a wee bit. For your hands, yeah. Oh yeah. There we go. Love to see it, Donnie.
You love to see it. That's what we aim for around here. Sometimes.
So we got these beautiful rear mounts, which are very easy to install. You can see there's a taper in there, and there's a taper on that stud. You just slide that Jonathan right up on there. So the stock subframe bushings have like 1 inch of deflection in them. So installing an aftermarket bushing, something solid like this, makes everything just a lot more predictable, makes the car a lot easier to drive. Auto or manual, just general handling, just keeps all the suspension where it's supposed to be, makes everything a little more predictable. So that's a very, very easy part of this installation, is just popping these guys on there. And then these guys, labeled upper bushing, just drop right into where they're supposed to go, and then there's little cones that fit in the bottom, which will snug in with our bolts when we bolt the subframe back up. So we have our whole upright with all OEM stuff that we're just going to slide back on now that everything is prepped and painted. That way we can have everything go back into the car in one assembly the same way we took it out. Let's get this guy going first. Stop. Yeah, basically now you're just going to assemble everything in the reverse order that you disassembled it. Everything should go back the same. You should be able to reuse all your OEM hardware, subframe bolts, and all that. So, last little bit is we're just going to snug our subframe into place, and then these lower cups will actually recess inside of our subframe a bit as everything tightens up. Then you get to feel the before and after difference of having proper suspension parts. Alright, so that wraps up the installation of the subframe bushings and differential bushings, both of which are available from SERIALNINE through drifthq.com. Follow us for more episodes. We're going to show you a few more parts we're going to update on these cars.
What'd you do
So-
today?
I got my house sprayed for big fire ants because I got bit. I put on a shirt this weekend and it was covered in fire ants. They like my laundry detergent apparently. So welcome to Florida.
How do you like the subframe?
I love the subframe. Now I want to paint the whole underneath of the car because this looks so good. Now we just got to keep following suit and changing stuff out. I love the energy that we got going here.
Yep.
It's pretty.
Next, we're going to get rid of these Cresta controls.